stories connect us as humans because stories are based on experience and stories bring the message to life. So the ability to tell a story is a key leadership skill. It's a way that we inspire.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews.
Hello and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. My name's Rick Nuske. Just like to say thank you very much for joining us on the show again, and thank you for all of your support. To me, it makes all of the difference knowing that the show is making a difference for you. Now, on today's call, thinking about things that make a difference in your business, I'm on the line with the wonderful Dr. Majed Yaghi. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Rick. Thanks for having me.
It is absolutely my pleasure to have you on the show with us, and today we're obviously going to be talking a little bit about you as well as your corporate experience, which spans quite some time in some pretty significant industry leaders, if you like. And we're going to be talking about B2B marketing, professional selling, and how the lessons that you've learnt along the way can help people build a better, more productive and more profitable business. But before we do any of that, Majed, I'm wondering if you could tell me where you're calling in from today.
I'm calling you from the great state of Texas, Lone Star State.
Fantastic. Excellent. Yeah. What do you love about the place?
There's a lot to love. Some things to scratch your head on, but a lot to love. First and foremost, I would say I love being in the city where the Dallas Cowboys, my favorite American football team, play.
No surprises there.
Yeah, I grew up not too far from here, almost 7 hours from here, in the neighboring state of Louisiana. And at the time, the local Louisiana professional football team, the New Orleans Saints, were not really that good. And the Dallas Cowboys were America's team, so it seemed, now that I think about it in hindsight, it felt like every weekend they were on TV. So naturally, yep. I grew attached to them, and it continues to this day. So I love being in the city where I can get in the car, turn on the radio, listen to everything that has to do with the Dallas Cowboys. And that's just a privilege and an honor and a blessing at the same time to be here and catch a couple of games here and there live in person. Weather is beautiful. Mm-hmm. My family and myself, we love warm weather much more than the colder northern hemisphere. We love the food. Amazing food culture here. Everything from barbecues to Tex-Mex to authentic Mexican food. Plus, of course, the diversity of a lot of the new communities that are being integrated into the food scene in the city.
Tell me about what you think of life now, where you're at in your life's journey. What do you think the most important thing is for you at the moment?
Oh, at this very moment, is just enjoying life, taking it one day at a time.
Yep.
And that's one of the reasons why I left a 32-year corporate career and a very, I would say, rewarding financially, I might say, financially rewarding career, and go into something that I also love and that I wanted to do for years, and that is teaching.
We'll talk about. Can we talk about that in a moment? But I'm wondering if you could just go over a few more other things with you in terms of, you talked briefly about growing up. Where was it that again that you grew up?
Yeah, so I was born in Amman, Jordan, and I came to the States in 1980 as a 16-year-old.
Yep.
And then I continued my journey with. I joined two of my brothers and one sister at the time who were already here in the States studying at different universities. And I came here, I joined them, and I continued the journey in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But my first few years were in Jordan. Um, Food is a very important part of my life so far. So, and
Yep,
I've been
yep.
fortunate in having lived in places that have amazing food. So, growing up, my mom, bless her soul, was a great chef, and then continuing the journey in New Orleans or Baton Rouge, Louisiana, being very close to New Orleans and experiencing Cajun food.
Oh yes, yum
Talk
yum.
about elevating your food experience. And now living here in the great state of Texas, as I mentioned, a lot of food. So, yeah, that's
Wonderful
Jordan and Louisiana are probably the two biggest parts that
parts
have
of your life. That's right.
impacted my life. Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic. As would be, I guess, the people that would have been around you early on. Now, I know inside of your book, there's a certain person in your world that helped shape you into the individual you've become. I know that you're one of 8 children. Tell us a little bit about
Yes.
your family.
Yeah. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, it's a very important. I mean, it is the foundation of who I am as a person today.
Mm.
It's the reason for my success. It's the reason for my being. So I'm one of 8. I'm the fourth, um, the third boy in a family of 8. My family is originally Palestinian refugees. My mom and my dad, they left their respective villages in the 1948 Israeli-Palestinian conflict,
Mm.
and they spent 10 years after that just going from one refugee camp
To
to
another.
another until they settled in 1956 in Amman, Jordan, and they made a home there, and it's been our birth place ever since. Growing up, obviously, I would say the first 20 years in Jordan, Rick, so from 1956 to 1976, 1977,
Mm-hmm.
I would say we grew up poor in the sense that financially we were okay, very challenged.
Challenged, yeah.
Just didn't have a lot of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Dad was in and out of jobs, not really committed to the family. So my mom had to fill the gap, and she had to take things on her own.
Big shoes to fill.
And yeah, absolutely big shoes, but she had the brains. She had the biggest brains. When I think about it today, as a former corporate executive,
Mm-hmm.
as a university professor, and I reflect on her journey, Rick, it is unbelievably amazing how this woman, who I did not tell you this, but she was illiterate. She was
Mm-hmm.
completely illiterate. She did not know how to read and write. We taught her basic writing skills because she had to sign documents and she had to be
Yep.
able, okay, to do basic reading. But that never, ever stopped her from pursuing her dreams.
That's
And her
incredible.
dreams were encapsulated into one mission. And that mission was to make sure that every single one of her 8 children was the most successful in their own career. She wanted to make sure that every single one of them got an education because she knew that education was the path, their path, her offspring's path to prosperity. She wanted her kids to have a better life, a much better life than the one that she had. And she knew that education was their only way out of that.
I can feel that there's a lot of love there. I can just sense it through the airways, if you like, and it's a wonderful
Thank
thing.
you.
Thank you very much for sharing. Now, I take from this also, Majed, that her mindset was such that it was perseverance, it was tenacity, it was, just sticking with it and having that singular mission. How has that transformed for you in a professional sense?
Oh, completely every aspect of my success in life, I
Mm.
attribute to those foundational skills and values that I learned from my mom. that she instilled in every single one of us.
Yeah.
My siblings. We're 5 boys and 3 girls. In my book, Leadership Lessons from an Illiterate Mother, I talk about those 4 lessons. And it's interesting you mentioned perseverance, because that's one of the lessons that I learned from her.
Mm.
To me, when I reflect on my own personal journey, having spent 32 years with 4 of the largest consumer goods companies in the world, 4 Fortune 100 companies in the world, and one of the reasons for my success is my perseverance. And to me, perseverance is the ability to focus on a particular target and a particular skill and not ever giving up and doing everything that you need in order to get you there. It's not just about hard work. It's about recognition of what is it that you need in order to accomplish that objective, and then doing things that are going to enable you and empower you to get there.
See, with this clarity comes objectives that you would have set in these senior corporate roles. And it would have been very easy for you to look at the strategy and say, well, look, most of this is to do with people. People are obviously what business is basically from a foundational level. How do you think that's helped you strategize in those senior roles over the years?
You're absolutely right, Rick. It's all about people. But to get the most out of people, to inspire people, that's the genius that is leadership. That is the quality that a lot of people do not have.
Yeah.
You think about, whether it's a sports team. What's your favorite sport, Rick?
AFL football.
Football, yeah. AFL football. Yeah. So if you take the best team out there, you will find there is a direct correlation between their success and the coach's ability to get the most out of their people. Yeah. So
you see it a lot too in interviews and the way they talk.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you see them use a lot of similar words. You see them use a lot of similar analogies. You see the entire team focus on one thing, whether it's winning or being a good team or whatever the objective is. In my leadership research, I did a study a few years ago that looked at leadership perceptions among 2 international cohorts. I looked at a group of Americans versus a group of Egyptians, just taking sort of a cross-cultural perspective, if you will. You know what's interesting, Rick? Among both cohorts, the number one expectation that those people had of their first line manager, I asked them the question around their first line and their second line manager. What did they expect of their first line manager, their direct boss? Both groups said, I want one thing, and that I want them to be able to inspire me.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Culture doesn't play a big reason, right?
No. So that doesn't matter if it's a small, medium, or large organization. Would that be the same?
Absolutely. It doesn't matter whether it's it's a teacher inspiring students, a football coach, a president of a country, or a president of an organization, for-profit or non-profit.
Hey,
right?
I have another question on that, just very quickly, if you don't mind. I think about Father's Day that's just gone by, and I think about parenting. Does this apply to that as well? Do you think that kids want to be inspired?
100%. That was the essence. Thank you very much for bringing that up. That is the essence of my book, because leadership lessons don't have to be learned from highly acclaimed celebrities or successful people. You don't need an Ivy League degree to teach leadership. Leadership lessons, the most important leadership lessons, can be learned from the least expected sources. whether it's a parent, in this case, a father, since we're in Father's Day
Yep.
period, a mom in my case, or a lot of other people, very unexpected. So the ability to inspire people, and it goes back to your question on the importance of people, the ability to get the most out of people is the biggest attribute in leadership that organizations expect.
So how do you, it's this come back down to early recruitment phase to choose the right team of people to join a business? And does this, is there a formula or a model for recruitment so you get the best people who are on board with this?
It depends. So there's a couple of different schools of thought on this. In 2010, I had the unique opportunity to have a close interaction with the former CEO of Xerox, a very successful lady by the name of Ursula Burns.
Yes.
And one of the great female CEOs in America, globally for that matter. And somebody from the audience, I still have my pocket note clips from that meeting 20 years ago, believe it or not.
I believe it.
Asked the question, what is the role of the CEO? She said, the role of the CEO is three things. One is to set a vision for the company. Okay. Two is to hire the next level of senior leadership. And then three, of course, is to go around the company and inspire people. So going back to the second point that she made, she in that discussion, that lunch discussion, she elaborated. She said there is a trickle effect in her mind, an expected trickle effect, that if she hires the right set of next level leaders, that those next level leaders will in turn hire great people like themselves and so forth, and that trickle effect will go all the way, okay, throughout the organization. And when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, right? The opposite is very likely to be true. That's why I do my research on toxic leadership, which is the dark side of leadership, because the opposite is absolutely true. Rick.
True. Yep. I wonder if we're talking about inspiration, we're talking about choosing the right people. And I'm wondering, does inspiration also relate directly or indirectly to ownership and responsibility? Does that inspire people to do the right thing?
Yes. When you think about inspiration, conceptually speaking, it's based on behavior, right?
Yep.
So the behavior of my leader inspires me to emulate that behavior, to be the best at what I do. Their behavior is critical, right? Because we learn from what we see. I mean, culture, when you think about it, I know we're switching a little bit, talking about culture. Culture, some people define it as culture is what people do when nobody's looking, right?
Yes. Yep.
But the key word here is do, right? So we're still talking about how people behave, right? Yep. So you walking in the hallway, there's nobody in the office, right? And you see or you drop something on the floor. Do you pick it up, or you're walking in that same hallway and you see something? Okay, you see $100 bill. Do you pick it up and you put it in the break room and you put a note on it, or do you put it in your pocket? So it's all about behavior. So to go back to your question, inspiration is about behavior, because let me take you back to that piece of research that I mentioned. It is one of the earlier studies that I did in my leadership journey. So when those two cohorts, the Americans and the Egyptians, Eastern culture versus Western culture, my hypothesis was there might be some differences. Turned out to be that people are people. They expect the same thing. So when they said, I want my boss to inspire me, they also said, I want them to delegate some work to me. They also said, I don't want them to play favorites.
Yep.
They also said, I want them to spend more time, coaching and guiding me. They also said I don't want them to spend time politicking than working. And then finally, they said, look, I want to know what my boss is thinking, because a lot of times I don't know what's in their head. So when you think about all those things, it's all about the leader's behavior.
Mm. Yeah, wow. I think about boots on the ground, and I think about visible leadership as opposed to absent leadership. You know, I'm your boss, but you never see me. They are
Right.
starkly different approaches. Is there a time and place for both, or should one precede the other?
Um, Again, if you think about it from a situational leadership school of thought, I think yes. The short answer is yes. There is
Mm.
a time for each. I think some people like a little bit more hand holding
Yep.
than others. A great leader would recognize that. A great leader would recognize who are the dependable individuals within their team, and they could empower them more. They could delegate more responsibilities to them, reacting to their understanding, the leader's understanding of the individual's capabilities, because he cannot lead everybody the same way,
Yep. Yep.
right?
Yep.
So, if you're coaching Cristiano Ronaldo, you cannot coach Cristiano Ronaldo the same way that you're coaching
A junior.
the other 10 players, even
Yep.
if they're all professionals
Oh, yep.
and
Yep.
they're all multimillionaires.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Loving this call. There's so much great things that we could talk about. Thank you very much, Majed. Now, I wonder, I think about the different people, different personality types and how they respond as leaders. And I think we've got metrics, KPIs, and then we've got thoughts and feelings type people. What do you do you prefer to manage by the numbers, or do you have a bit of a blend of, the thoughts, feelings, and numbers approach?
Look, by nature, I am a Libra, so I'm very sociable.
Mm.
My leadership style is very collaborative. So I like to engage with people. I
With
like to
people.
collaborate with others. I am not a directive type of leader. I never was, even when I had multiple levels of teams reporting into me. I wasn't the type that used the authority to try to force
Get what you
issues.
want.
Yeah. So I've always believed in the power of collaboration and the fact that the word team, it could be perceived as an acronym that stands for together each achieves more. So the
Yep.
collective genius, the idea of collectively, people will be much better than the individual sum of the parts, is very powerful to me.
Before we pivot on to professional selling, I'd love to know what you look for from an auditor's perspective. Regardless of what position you're in, should everybody have the ability, the skill, be it learnt or natural, to be able to identify a toxic environment, a toxic culture inside of a workplace?
100%. And
Mm.
what is truly a sad state of affairs is that organizations, big and small, spend enormous sums of money annually training high potential individuals to be the next great leaders.
Yep.
Those organizations, I mean, we're talking, Rick, Fortune 100 companies are spending millions
Millions and millions and
of
millions.
dollars. As a former Fortune 100 corporate executive, I can tell you I've been on 3 leadership experiences, 3 different leadership programs that have cost anywhere upward of $10,000, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What organizations do not do is they do not do anything to try to, excuse me, to try to expose toxic leadership or even talk about toxic leadership behavior. I describe toxic leadership as the cancer of organizations. If you do not detect it early, your organization in trouble. If you have a toxic leader within the organization and they go on spewing their toxicity and the organization does not do anything about it, people leave because, as you and I know, people leave bosses. They don't leave companies.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will emulate that toxic behavior, and slowly that destructive behavior will eat up the organization.
Almost
So,
becomes cultural, doesn't it?
absolutely. So by all means, I think that organizations should do something to try to diagnose the level of toxicity, if not across the organization, at least start at the leadership level. And I've never advocated, Rick, that you do this diagnostic in order to fire them. No,
No.
okay, because obviously, they're contributing to the organization, but you do it in order for you to manage it.
Yep.
You do it in order to identify, hey, look, you got a dark side, man. Okay, you cannot be rude to people. Okay, let's put together a plan. Let's make sure that you're addressing that, right?
Yep.
Obviously, toxic behavior, as you can imagine, as a spectrum, can run a very wide range. If we're talking about people that are extremely toxic, then obviously you have to react to it. If you got somebody who is just
It's not black and white, is it? It's not black and white. I mean, you think about it. You think about this. You have the passive aggressive leader. You've got the passive aggressive, teammates. You've got those who have personal agendas that they're trying to fulfill to maybe corporate ladder climb. There's just so many variables to this. Now, I just would like, if we could, Majed, to talk a little bit about, I guess for context, just some of the organisations that you've worked with, because I think a lot of people on the show don't know your background. Tell us a little bit about the actual brands that you've worked with.
Yes, so
just briefly.
I'll start in reverse order. So I spent the last 23 years at Coca-Cola. I left last year, around this time last year, as Vice President of Global Accounts.
Yep.
Prior to that, I spent 2 years in brand management with Kimberly-Clark, the company that makes Kleenex and Yahgi's diapers. And then prior to that, 5 years with Gillette, selling razors and personal toiletries.
Yep.
And my first job out of college was with a company called Warner Lambert. It does not exist, the company today, but they sold their brands. They did Shick Razors, Dentine chewing gum, and other confectionaries.
So as the sum of the parts for all of those different experiences across very different organizations, are there any commonalities that you've really, I guess, adopted and embraced in your training?
Yes, perfectionism. All those companies, I mean, they're global and, they're enduring for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is that they're perfectionists. I'll give you a couple of examples. Gillette, now they're part of P&G, Procter & Gamble. Before they got bought out by Procter & Gamble, they used to have, during the time I was with the company, they used to have a 65% market share of the world shaving market. 65% of all razors around the world, right? The number 2 brand, Shick, had 10%. So by any stretch of the imagination, a lot of management gurus would tell Gillette, there's no need to invest in new product development, NPD, or innovation. You got 65%. You can sleep for 10 years.
Rest on your laurels.
Absolutely. You can do that for the next 10 years, and the number 2 player would not catch up to you, but not Gillette. They were spending 3% of annual revenues every year in research and development.
That's crazy. It's a necessary thing, though, isn't it? R&D.
Well, that's how you keep the organization driving. That's how you maintain the mindset. You started off talking about mindset. That's how you keep that leadership, that growth mindset into your organization. So yeah, that I would say perfectionism was, and of course Coca-Cola, I, arguably the second most popular word in the entire world.
World.
A company that operates in 206 countries, a company that went international before international was favorable, a company that entered Africa almost 100 years ago, long before Africa, okay, was the growth engine that companies right now are, are looking at. So those two values are consistently,
Paramount.
yeah, for all those international brands.
What a great conversation. I often think also about storytelling because you've just, I guess, touched on the Coca-Cola story, which I absolutely love. The salesman walking around and I don't know what it was back then, 2p and getting, buy my syrup and, you do this and you do that. And then it just went from there. So on that, how important from a leadership perspective and a selling perspective is the ability to tell stories?
Oh, it's paramount. Oh, it's paramount. I mean, you stories connect us as humans because stories are based on experience.
Yeah.
And experiences are what
Everything.
we go through, right?
Yep.
So when I used to travel with Coca-Cola, and we'd go in very remote places in places like Tanzania in Africa, and we would be talking over dinner with some of our partners, and they would ask questions, right? And I would tell them, okay, a story, and then immediately they would go, oh, well, let me tell you, my first time drinking a Coca-Cola. It wasn't actually when Coca-Cola entered Tanzania. I was traveling years ago in Kenya, and that was the first time I tasted Coca-Cola. So stories are based on human experiences, and stories just bring the message to life. So the ability to tell a story is a key leadership skill. It's a way that we inspire others. I mean, if you look at some of all the great, inspiring sports-related videos, the coaches on those videos had a great story to tell.
Yep.
And those stories are being told in reality by coaches and teachers. I do it all the time in my classroom, right? I use these stories and anecdotes to amplify certain points.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, I love this whole idea that you can tell a story to help you sell, to help be a good leader. Tell me, what's the difference between normal selling and your reference to what you've called professional selling? Is there a difference?
There is a difference because I'll tell you, professional selling is different because it's based on a very systemic, organized, well thought out professional approach.
Yep.
It's more relationship based than traditional selling. Traditional selling, you think of a door-to-door salesperson that's selling, I don't know, Tupperware or encyclopedias, right? Or
Avon.
even, yeah, Avon, or, a car salesman, right? But professional selling, it's more long-term, right? So it's about a relationship. So think of, you get hired to work at Coca-Cola. Well, you're not selling Coca-Cola. I never sold Coca-Cola. All I was doing, my teams never sold Coca-Cola. We never physically got in a car and said, hey, Mr. Retailer.
Buy my Coke.
Yeah, no. We were maintaining the relationship that existed years ago. But in order to be successful at maintaining that relationship and not screwing up what the company has done for 137 years, you need professionalism. You need the highest level.
It's next level stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely, absolutely. You need GM level thinking. You need a growth mindset. You need somebody who's not just going to come to you, Rick, and say, okay, Rick, I know you have your grocery store. I know your traffic is down this month, but let me share with you a study that our company did Or here's a story from somebody who has a grocery store similar to yours. They were facing some down time, and here's how we helped turn around their business. And I bring the success story that helps turn around your business, even though it has nothing to do with buying Coca-Cola.
Yeah, wow. I can imagine sitting around a fireplace with you, a bonfire with a group of people, just sharing stories about your journey. And I believe you've gone on to create professional selling programs. Is that correct?
No. To be honest with you, I joined a wonderful organization, the University of North Texas, here locally, and there is an award-winning professional selling program that was launched 9 years ago by Dr. Jeffrey Lewin, who's no longer with the university, but he's done a marvelous job of creating this program. But what we do is we bring in a very select group of individuals from the university. We normally take in between 10 to 20 people, and they go through this program.
Got it. Yep.
It's a year long, and it's very successful. Huge track record.
Yes, fantastic. Thank you very much for sharing. Now, I often think about the different type of people and their roles that they have in an organization. But do you think that everybody should have a selling mentality, even if they're selling internally to each other or externally?
Not only that, Rick. Every single function within an organization, meaning your lawyer, your CFO, your supply chain, okay? Your HR person, they have to have professional selling qualities because they're selling themselves. They're selling their function. They're selling their capabilities. It's selling strategies. Selling value. Absolutely. Your lawyer is selling their ability to defend, to understand the law inside out, and to think ahead of time. So they're selling something. I always tell my students, okay, we're all salespeople. We just don't realize it. And professional selling allows you to systemically compartmentalize what you learn and brings to the forefront the things that you need to do in order to be successful. So I agree. To your point, yes, everybody should have some degree of professional selling, regardless of their function or their level within the organization. What do you think? What do you think CEOs do when they go on their quarterly earnings call?
Yep, absolutely. They're selling themselves. Now, I wonder, you've obviously been exposed to a lot of students, both online and face to face, presumably. What are the most common questions that you get asked?
Relative to
leadership or selling, it doesn't really matter, because I'm sure there'd be some common ones.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them, they ask me, why did I leave a nice paying job at Coca-Cola? To which I say, in order for me to teach you and to pass that knowledge on to you. And then they all giggle and they say, oh, thank you.
Life changes though, doesn't it? You know, your personal mission changes.
Because I tell them, among other things, hey, do what you love and love what you do.
Yes.
That's
sage
the key
advice.
Success, right? So yeah, they ask me about things like I would say the most popular question the last few months is, look, how do you know when to leave an organization? Of course, they look at my resume and we talk, and they see that I spent 23 years at a company, and they're like, how? Right? Because we're talking about 21, 22-year-olds. The idea of spending 23 years at one organization, just they don't comprehend it.
Mind blowing.
And what I tell them is, I never set out to spend 23 years at Coca-Cola.
No.
I started, and at the end of my first year, I got evaluated, I got rewarded, I heard some great things, and then I may have gotten a raise, so I stuck around. Yep. And then I stuck around, and before I knew it, it was 23 years.
Yeah, wow.
If you love what you do, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, does it? Thank you very much for sharing everything you've done thus far. I know that the My Future Business audience would be taking a lot away from this. As I've mentioned, underneath the My Future Business logo, it's got helpful people helping people, and you're certainly doing that by sharing some of your experiences. So thank you very much. Now, in terms of your cover, who actually did that? And I have a further question on the leadership cover. Why did you have alternate colors there? Because it's very eye-catching. Was there a thing to that?
No, it was designed by the publisher, Archway Publishing. They did a wonderful job. Their designers thought, this is a great, impactful way to present the book.
The book. Yep.
Red is my favorite color, so I wanted to make sure that's the background. But the design was done by Archway Publishing.
Fantastic. Now, do you have any intention to go maybe audiobook with this, or is it just hard copy at the moment?
Right now, it's hard and ebook. It's available as an ebook. I am working on my second book. I have not thought of the audio. It would be a very interesting opportunity. Maybe I can have you do the audio, since you have a wonderful voice.
There you go. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to ask you about your next book as we near the end of the call, Majed. The Toxic Trigon. I have no idea what that means. Could you share it with us?
Yeah, so the Toxic Trigon is the culmination of my doctoral thesis study.
Yep.
And it comes down to three things that really are extremely dangerous to organizations: a bureaucratic culture combined with what I call continuance, commitment, and toxic behavior forms the toxic trigon. Very quickly on each one. Bureaucratic culture, you know what it is, very layered, a lot of bureaucracies. A continuous commitment is when you have individuals on your team that are only committed because of the job, because of the money.
Yes.
And the minute they get somebody to pay them 5 cents more an hour, they might jump ship. Yep. And then, of course, the toxic leader is something that you do not want. So the combination of those three things
make up that book.
Triangle. Yep.
Fantastic. So how far away are we before we see this book?
I'm halfway. I'm aiming March of 2023.
Yep.
My first book was launched March of 2022.
Yep.
So I'm trying to keep it on that same cycle.
Thank you very much for sharing. Great call. I know there'd be a lot of people who want to get their hands on your books. So a couple of things in that. Where are they going to find it? And if they want to contact you, where do they go?
Yes. So Leadership Lessons from an Illiterate Mother is available on Amazon, Archway Publishing, Barnes & Noble. We do ship Amazon. Amazon ships international. At international sales. You can contact me. You can look me up on LinkedIn, Majed Yaghi, Majedyaghi, and I'm more than happy to talk to anyone that might have a question or some additional thoughts.
This has been a great call. Anybody who's on the call with us today, I hope you enjoyed it. We've only just touched the surface of all the topics that we've covered today. I'll be making sure that the links back to the leadership book and to Majed are available below this post, no matter where you see it. You will find the links back to Majed and his wonderful books. And with that being said, Majed, thank you so very much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much, Rick. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.